built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Down south. But my girl wants to party all the time, party all the time, party all the time. Get him.
Hello there, my name is Aaron Moss, and this is the Starman Manhunter Adventure Hour, presented by Head Speaks. This is an hour-ish long podcast where we'll talk about the Will Payton Starman comic and the Mark Shaw Manhunter comic from the late 80s, early 90s. We'll talk about every appearance of these two great characters. If you've never read them or haven't read them in a while, this may be a good time to explore these issues. Now, let's get started with our first comic.
Welcome to the Starman Adventure Show. Yeah, thanks for calling it now. The Starman Adventure Show. Episode 43. Before I get started, this episode is sponsored by Big Danny Cool, one of our sponsors over on the Patreon page. Again, you can join Big Danny Cool and sponsor us over on patreon.com/headcastnetwork.com. The tier he's on, he gets one mention on one show. But seeing how I've been lax on doing the Patreon stuff and how he's my first sponsored by donor, I'm going to mention him on every show I do this month. So, Big Danny Cool, thank you very much for joining us at Patreon. And again, you too can join members such as Big Danny Cool and Gene Hendricks over at patreon.com/headcastnetwork. But enough about that. Let's get started with this episode. This month, we are looking at the books that came out in August of 1991. Again, only one book since we've gone through the Manhunter book already. We're looking at Starman number 37. This, as I said, the cover date was August of 1991. The on-sale date, June the 25th, 1991. Cover price, $1. $1. 4 quarters you'd buy this book. The title was called Sophisticated Ladies. Writer, Len Straczynski. Writer, Dave Hoover. Inker, Roy Richardson. Letterer, Robert M. Piana. Colorist, Tom J. McCraw. The cover was done by Dave Hoover. And the editor was Katie Main. As usual, we will start the cover. This month, we see Starman strapped into that cross, aka type device he was in last month. There's green energy crackling all around him. And in front of him, we have General Computron, I believe his name is. Rampage and Phantom Lady. Again, Phantom Lady, as she's wont to do, is struck out a sexy pose. It's a side view of her. She's down on her buttocks, it looks like, with one leg stretched out, the other kind of cocked back, looking at a side view. Very sexy. As Shag would say, hot. And as Kevin over on the G.I. Joe podcast would say, hot. So anyways, that's a great cover. I like this cover, not only because it has two beautiful women on the front, but we get Starman stretched out. We can tell he's got some kind of pain, I would say, the way he's stretched out. Again, I still like the original peanut butter and jelly costume, but this is a nice costume. I mean, we had a nice, almost full shot of it. I mean, his forearms are kind of blocked off by the device, and his upper legs are kind of blocked off with the green energy and General Computron there, but it's very nice. Now to move on to the issue itself. Again, we start out where we left off last week, where General Computron, until I come across his name and they correct me, that's what I'm going to keep calling him, has just just kidnapped Starman, to be more precise. Rampage and Phantom Lady are kind of, gone through the washer, and Rampage turns back into Kitty Faulkner as she kind of passes out. I love here on the splash page, not necessarily splash page, but the first page, we see her transforming from Rampage back into Kitty. Very nice shots. And again, Kitty's a beautiful woman. So, and she's being held by a Phantom Lady. I think I've had dreams like that. Then the next couple of pages, we get a quick recap, I guess, or introduction to Rampage. Kitty explains to the professor and Phantom Lady who Rampage or what Rampage is. And then Phantom Lady gives us a rundown on Computron. Lets us know it's an employee of Les Mile Yucks, international crime cartel. He's a walking computer that can calculate and generate whatever is needed to defeat an opponent. The word was that he reformed, but I guess that's not true. Again, we find out he fought the Flash a few years ago, the old Flash, which is Jay Garrick, not Wally West. Again, I don't like that they're kind of dismissing Barry, but just because I like Barry. But again, we find out, she's like, the Flash? Oh, sure, he's a little mature, but he's a real sweetheart deep down. He's not half as big a jerk as people say. And again, as Phantom Lady's doing this discussion, she's pouring herself a cup of coffee, it looks like. I'm assuming it's coffee. And leaning against a counter, being sexy she does. And and she says that, who was that? The Flash, the Wally West, is a heck of a kisser. And she's like, I bet Starman's pretty good too. And Kitty's like, I wouldn't know. So again, they've got, Kitty and Starman's got something going on, but they haven't gone very far with it yet. So, but I like that Phantom Lady's assuming that they're an item. And after a more dialogue and Phantom Girl showing off her cleavage, we find out that Kenneth, the robot, is still alive. And apparently when he scanned Starman, he's able to track him. And again, even though his dome was smashed open, apparently Starman has a unique molecular structure that's key to a sensor bank. And again, here on bottom of page 5, we got some girl power going on. We got Kitty and Phantom Lady arm in arm, both with an arm outstretched. Like, all right, woman to the ride to the rescue. Just hang on, Starman. And again, I'm sure in today's society, this would be called woke, that women have to come in and save the man. People would be upset by it. But you know what? It happens. And I like that, this is back in the early 90s. When did this come out? This came out in 91. I mean, we even had this type of girl power, this type of, again, what people would call woke storytelling going on then. So, I mean, for people thinking, woke is a new thing, it's been around for years. It's just, people will be offended by it now. But a great shot of Kitty and Phantom Lady posing here for this, here on page 5, this panel. And then we find out that we cut to Colonel Computron with having Will tied up still in the gizmo, and he's transferring Will's power to himself. And Will's telling me, I'm tapped out, there's nothing left. And Computron's like, that is not correct. My sensors indicate your personal energy level is 63%. But who's counting? I feel like a flat tire. And he doesn't realize, Colonel Computron doesn't realize that the machine is still set for pyrite. So him trying to use it to siphon Will's energy is not going to work at this point until he fills the control properly. But even though it's not draining his power like Computron wants, it's still weakening our hero. So, and Will, again, uses his solar energy to try to melt his way through the bars, but the Computron can sense the temperature increase. It's outside normal parameters, so he lets loose with a what does he call it? A heat retardant foam all over Will to cool him down. Which it must be a pretty heavy foam, because again, Will has the power of the sun basically behind him. So for this foam to put it out, it's got to be a pretty potent foam to dampen that heat. And finally, he realizes that the transmitter is not calibrated for lead. He's resequencing and rewriting everything. And Will's like, there's something familiar about this guy. I just can't quite place it. And he's looking around realizing that there's a bunch of toys around him. And that's when Will realizes that this was the toy on the box of cereal he was eating yesterday. And I didn't pay that close attention when I read last issue, so I had to actually go back and look and see, oh my God, it is. He was on the box of cereal. I didn't even catch that. So I thought that was funny that, I missed that when I first read it, but after rereading it, or not rereading, but I went back and looked at the cover after seeing this, and he was on the box of cereal. And I do like for the next page, he's kind of giving Computron crap about being on. He's like, hey, Captain Computron, that's it. How come you're dressed up like a cheap toy? It's not cheap. It's a great toy. Look like a piece of junk to me. Is not. Is so. Is not. And he clamps him on the nose and goes, is not. And I like here on the bottom of page 10, beginning of page 11, there's a little transition. Starman's talking to Computron, again, giving him crap about his name, about the toy. And Computron goes, Captain Computron is a toy. I am Colonel Computron. I am a weapon. And the transition to the next page has Phantom Lady going, now that's a weapon. As Kitty has modified or upgraded her wrist laser. And she says here it's about 10 times more powerful than the previous one, as she just melted through a block of steel. So a nice transition. I like the way that they transition that between the writing and the art. I thought it was a good job, personally. And so we get the women sitting here comparing gizmos. Phantom Lady showing off her holographic image projector that's in the jewel that she wears. And apparently Kitty's upgraded that, so it does a lot more tricks. So Phantom Lady, who's been around for a while, like I said, I think I said previously, she was a Charlton character that DC's acquired. Now she's in the DC universe, and Kitty's making her more powerful. No, she's not Charlton. She's with Quality Comics, not Charlton. I'm getting my groups confused. She's here in the comics with characters such as Uncle Sam and Dollman and Black Hawk, Black Condor, and other characters of that time. Miss America, who DC acquired. Plastic Man was over there. That's where she came from, and DC bought them at some point and brought her in the DC universe. So I do like that Kitty, she's mingling with the DC heroes, and she's getting an upgrade from our very own Kitty Faulkner. I say our very own. She started off with Superman, but that's another story entirely. And the professor comes back out with Kenneth, and we find out that apparently there was some sort of a problem with the repairs. He's not quite right. Apparently he's been watching too much wrestling, and so he's in wrestling mode. He's like, I'm ready to grind his servos. I'll short his circuits like no one's shorter than before. So I do like Kenneth. He's an interesting robot for the story. Yeah, I don't think he appears anymore after the storyline, so I think we're going to miss Kenneth. So the girls and Kenneth take off, leaving the professor behind, because again, they don't know what's going to they don't know what they're going to get into, and they don't want, again, he's an ordinary human for the most part. They don't want him getting hurt or getting into trouble. So, as they're leaving, Kenneth's like, tracking friend Starman, stop, reverse course, south by southwest, take the side road, it's faster. So basically, Kenneth is acting as GPS for the ladies. And as they're driving, he's still, we're going to devastate him. We're going to, can we shut his voice circuits off or something? And just some nice pictures here on page 12 of Phantom Lady and Kitty driving through the woods as they're searching for Will, aka Starman, which leads them to a place called Toy Factory. It's a giant building. It's got a very colorful, toy factory with a rainbow and a doll and a giraffe and dice on the sign. And again, here on page 13, there's a nice shot of Kitty changing from Kitty into Rampage. Very nice image of, we see Kitty, and then behind her, with a bright light behind it, as it's forming, is her Rampage alter ego. Oh, very nice. And I like this, as she transforms, she's like, I guess I'd better get ready for a fight. And Phantom Lady's like, that's got to be intimidating to your gentleman callers. Huh? It's a joke. Very nice. I love the humor that they inject in the book. It's fantastic. And I like on page 14 where Phantom Lady starts to cut through the solid steel door, and Rampage is like, don't waste the juice. And actually, it's funny, they've got the dialogue here where, I'm just looking here, where Kitty and Rampage is talking, they've got the dialogue reversed. They got Rampage talking about how the Kenneth was really designed to be a weapons, but they changed it during the Cold War when it ended. And she's like, I'll cut through with my laser, and Phantom Lady saying, don't waste the juice. And then the next page, we see Rampage stomping the door down. So they got, and I missed that the first time through, but yeah, they got the voices going to the wrong characters, which is interesting. And again, as they bust through, Will's like, about time. I've been hanging around all day. Dad jokes in an 80s DC comic. Love it. And then Rampage starts fighting Computron. Phantom Lady frees Starman. And as they're doing this, Kenneth comes barging in. Sensors indicate battle in progress. A battle royale. No disqualifications. Again, it's still in wrestling mode. And it's as Phantom Lady's freeing Will. She's our Starman. She's like, your girlfriend is something else, Starman. Hope you appreciate her. Oh, I'm just beginning to. And again, she used her gem she talked about earlier. Again, Schroeder's gun. I say Schroeder's cap, but Schroeder's gun, I believe it is. Where she talked about the gem and how it can create illusions. And now we're seeing that here in person. So, in the next couple pages, our hero is battling against Computron. Apparently, the transmuter gets broke. And I like here on page 17 where Will and Kitty Starman and Rampage go up together and they're like, Starman's like, ready, sweetheart? Like, you know it. Did you just call me sweetheart? Uh-huh. As they knock Computron down. And I knew him and Kitty had flirted or something. I forgot if they actually became a couple because, it's been a while since I've read this book. But as Computron's starting to get back up, Kenneth comes in. And he's like, now it's my turn. And Kenneth starts electrifying. Here on page 18 is a great splash page of Kenneth holding Computron down, just energy crackling around him, and just the massive amount of output of energy coming from Kenneth into Computron. It's just a fantastic splash page. Not quite poster worthy because, again, both characters are a little boring looking in my opinion. They're both whites suits basically. In fact, from the back, Computron looks like a snake armor from G.I. Joe. Or maybe that's just my G.I. Joe brain. But it's a nice page, don't get me wrong. Very nice. It's just, not a lot of color. Yellows and orange and white. But it's very, very dynamic as we see Computron on his knees getting fried, basically. And Kenneth's like, no device sticks a missile in my sensor, and gets away with it. As he starts ripping Computron apart and just knocks him down. After Computron goes down, Kenneth's like, yes. And Phantom's like, I think you've been watching too much wrestling. Definitely. And as they take the helmet off of Computron, they find it's just a little kid. Apparently it's a teenage girl. She starts crying. You ruined everything. Wow, I was going to be rich. And then Daddy could reopen the toy stores and it'd be okay. And so Phantom Lady calms her down. I like Will's like, she's shushing a supervillain? Well, considering the situation, what else can you do? I suppose my nose still hurts from when Computron tweaked it earlier. So I like that, we get this big battle, and then at the end we find out that this big bad villain is actually just a teenage girl that's upset that her father's losing his business and is trying to help out. The worst way possible, but trying to help out. And then we get, here on page 21, we get like a exposition dump page. I know over in the Superman books, when John Byrne was writing it, we had a lot of that. We find out that her father redesigned the Captain Computron toy, but had the patent stolen from him, so he became the original Colonel Computron to get revenge years ago. And we get, that's the one that Flash fought back then. He was defeated, he reformed, started the toy chain, which hasn't done so well. And the daughter intercepted a message from that Les Millie Yucks, whatever, that tried to lure him out of retirement. But she decided to become a supervillain and be a great part-time job. And I like this. Will's like, great, I got kidnapped by a super juvenile delinquent. And again, we find out that Phantom Lady's saying that the Colonel Computron suit has a personality template on its own. And once she put it on, the computer kind of took over and controlled her actions. And Starman's like, sure, blame technology. And Kenneth goes to watch some wrestling, and his Phantom Lady's like, a wrestling robot, go figure. The professor's like, well, it keeps him occupied while I'm working. And we end our story with Phantom Lady driving off in her Jeep, said that she'll look him up in Phoenix when she's in town next week. And I like, as she's driving away, Starman's like, she sure is something else. What a costume. Kitty's like, oh, I don't know, it all seems so obvious. You're right. I think I'm more attracted to the Scully sort. Kitty's like, yeah, you better watch when you hit that arm, Starman. I'll have Rampage tear it off your shoulder. And again, a little flirting back and forth as Will leans in and kisses her. And they fly off with Will saying, why don't we stay in town on our next date? And that's the end. Again, a great story. I love this two-part story, but I think it was a good job. I enjoyed it. And we get a note here in the letters page where the editor, Katie Main, is saying this is the last issue of Starman, which she'll see her name listed as editor. She's leaving the book to become the editor of Warner Brothers International Publishing, which means her name will be in the Looney Tunes or Tiny Toons books. And again, she thanks everyone for making her first. Apparently, this is her first. Try that again. Apparently, this is the first book she edited, so she thanked everyone for making it, so much fun. And apparently, they're handing the book off to some guy named Paul Kupperberg. Paul Kupperberg. Never heard of the guy. Sounds like Yahoo to me. No, I say that because I'm friends with Paul on Facebook. So, and I've talked to him. Because again, Paul Kupperberg did the Checkmate comic that I covered over on my Task Force X podcast. So just a little bit of fun there. No, I love Paul. He's a great guy, a great writer, great editor. Now that he's coming on board on the book, I may have to see if I can get with him and talk to him about his time on Starman. I'm not sure if he ended it because like this next issue's 38 and there's only goes up to 45. So in fact, I'm jumping to the end real quick to look. Yeah, Paul edited the last issue. So that means I need to talk to Paul at some point and get some thoughts on his work on Starman. But that's for another episode. I don't know if I'll do it right away or maybe wait till the end and maybe get it covered as I finish up the last episodes. We'll see. But that's going to do it for this issue of Starman. We're going to take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back with Coppa Comics Comic Rack.
And now these messages.
Justice League International, Bwahaha Podcast, a new monthly show chronicling the adventures of the JLI era by Keith Giffen and J.M. DeMatteis. We'll be going issue by issue in release order, tackling the core Justice League title, Justice League Europe, and the quarterly book. Along the way, we'll take time out for special episodes covering various spin-offs, cartoon appearances, the infamous TV pilot, and much more. So join me in an ever-changing roster of guest hosts as we celebrate your favorite JLI members, such as
Martian Manhunter,
Batman,
Dr. Fate,
Black Canary,
Fire, Ice,
Maxwell Lord,
Oberon,
Captain Marvel,
Rocket Red,
Captain Atom,
Mr. Miracle,
Guy Gardner,
Booster Gold,
Blue Beetle,
Nort,
and many, many more. Justice League International, Bwahaha Podcast, part of the Fire and Water Podcast Network. Want to make something of it?
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Mike.
Man, it sure is great to be back from crisis to crisis after all this time. It's been a busy year for both of us.
For very different reasons.
But now we're ready to cover the post-Death and Return Superman stories.
Yeah, and we're about to start the books that came out in 1994, which means that we have so much to look forward to, like Bizarro's World,
the battle for and fall of Metropolis,
Superman Doomsday, Hunter, Prey,
Worlds Collide.
Well, you're looking forward to that one.
Oh, bite me.
0 Hour,
0 Month,
and right there at the end we have Dead Again.
And don't forget the Elseworlds annuals as well.
Well, most of them anyway.
Yeah, some of those really did suck, don't they?
But From Crisis to Crisis is back. New episodes will drop on Thursday, just like before.
You can find the show at the Superman homepage, www.supermanhomepage.com, as well as at the Superman Podcast Network, which is at www.supermanpodcastnetwork.com.
And we also have a Facebook page that you can like by going to www.facebook.com/FromCrisisToCrisis, a Superman Podcast.com. Is it .com on there? No, it's not. No .com. Forget that.
So From Crisis to Crisis is back, folks, and better than ever.
Well, I'm better than ever. You need some work.
No, shut up.
No, you 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 shut up.
From Crisis to Crisis, a Superman podcast, covering the post-crisis adventures of Superman, 1/2 month at a time. Every Thursday at www.supermanhomepage.com and www.fortressofbaileytude.com.
And welcome back. Now it's time for Coppa Comics Comic Rack. These are the books that were on sale August of 1991. Again, not everything, just the ones that draw my eye. We're going to start off with Action Comics 668. This was The Ghost of Luthor, written by Roger Stern. Again, I don't remember the storyline offhand, but I do remember this cover. It's got a nice cover of Superman flying in the sky, and there's an image of Luthor in the sky yelling at Superman. Very beautiful cover. I like this cover. Very nice. Also this month, there was Action Comics Annual number 3. This was part of the Armageddon 2001 storyline. I covered this over on my Head Speaks podcast here quite a while back, and it took me quite a while to get through it. It went through all the annuals, plus they had an opening and an ending story. Overall, I enjoyed Armageddon 2001, though as I talked about on the show, I had some problems with it later on, looking back at it. But for the annuals, for the most part, were pretty good. There was some that wasn't as good, but as standalone stories, they were good stories. I enjoyed them. Also was Adventures of Superboy 19. This was the stories based on the cartoon. Also this month was Adventures of Superman 481. This was being written by Jerry Ordway, fantastic writer and artist. But he just did the writing on this book. Again, more on Superman. Check out Michael Bailey's From Crisis to Crisis, a Superman podcast. He covered this entire era. Adventures of Super Mario Brothers, number 7. I'd only gotten like the first issue or so of this. I didn't keep buying this book, but just wanted to mention it. Then there was Alpha Flight number 99. I want to say this was a Billy book. Again, for those that may have just joined us, a Billy book is my best friend. Well, one of my best friends at the time, Billy. We were both buying comics. I would buy some, he would buy some, and we would share and read each other's books. And this one I think Billy was buying and I was reading. Also this month was Alpha Flight Special number 2. We also had Amazing Spider-Man number 350. Looks like Dr. Doom was in this issue. Yes, it was Dr. Doom appeared in this book. Again, I love some Spider-Man, especially from this era. Fantastic stories. Also for Spider-Man, there was Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 25. This year, Marvel had grouped their annuals together and they had little crossovers in their different annuals. This one, looking at the cover, probably crossover with Iron Man, and if Black Panther had a book, I would imagine. Just looking at the cover of this. Animal Man number 38. This was being written by Tom Veitch. I was still reading Animal Man at this time, but it wasn't as good. This is when it had gone to Vertigo. It wasn't quite as good as it originally started, but I was still keeping up with it just because I have an addiction. As usual, a bunch of Archie books, which I'm not going to get into. Avengers 335. Oh, back on Animal Man. I plan on covering the first couple years of Animal Man at some point, somewhere, some way. Just not quite sure where and when yet, but watch for it. Avengers number 335. Again, I was enjoying Avengers at this time. Great stories. Also, there was Avengers 336 and Avengers West Coast 73. Moving on, there was Batman 466 and 467. This was being written by Alan Grant with pencils by Norm Brayfogle. So a great era of Batman. Loved it. Also this month, we're going to skip over the Betty Veronica books. There was Captain America 389. Also this month was Captain America 390, which was part of a crossover, it looks like. Moving back over to DC, there was Captain Atom number 56. Also this month, we're going to mention Challengers of the Unknown number 6. Again, as I've talked about Challengers, I enjoyed the book on and off. I mean, they had different mini-series and maxi series, and so I read most of them. Most of them were pretty good for the most part. It just never really, it never really seemed to find a good footing, I think. Moving on, Cloak and Dagger number 19. Again, that was a book that I read on and off, that I enjoy Cloak and Dagger. And the stories are anywhere from really good to, it wasn't bad. Also this month, we had Damage Control number 3. Again, just want to throw that out there. This was a Marvel book. Basically, the people that cleaned up after superhero fights. It's more of a comedy book. Enjoyable. Daredevil try that again. Daredevil number 295 with Ghost Rider. I was enjoying Daredevil. Thought it was a good book. Again, I know David Weeder has a Daredevil podcast if you want to dare to take the challenge. Dark Hawk number 6. I enjoyed Dark Hawk. This had a crossover, not necessarily a crossover, but guest starring Captain America and Daredevil. I like Dark Hawk, about a young kid that got an amulet that turned him into a superhero. It was enjoyable. Deadly Foes of Spider-Man number 4. Also this month was Deathstroke the Terminator number 1. This was basically a Teen Titans add-on book. He's always fighting the Teen Titans, and this is back before DC paired him up with Green Arrow and other heroes. He was mostly a Teen Titans fan at this point. This is written by Marv Wolfman, a great writer. Also this month, just going to mention it because, again, I'm a big perv. Debbie Does Dallas number 6. Never owned any of those, but it's Debbie Does Dallas. Got to mention it. The Demon number 14. Like I said, everything had a comic back in the 80s and the early 90s. The Demon number 14 was written by Alan Grant. This was the Demon versus Lobo, it looks like. I enjoyed that series. I don't remember much about it now, but I do remember enjoying it. Also this month, back over to Batman, was Detective Comics 633 and 634. And I have several of my friends out there have different Batman podcasts. Great shows. Also this month was Dr. Fate number 31. I enjoyed Dr. Fate. Looks like this was still the female. It looks like it was still Enza, and Nelson was Dr. Fate, which was Kent Nelson's wife. Also this month, speaking of mystical fates and all that, Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme number 32 is out. I didn't buy it, but there was Doctor Who magazine number 176. I wasn't a Whovian at the time. I knew of Doctor Who. I'd watch a couple episodes here and there, but yeah, it wasn't a thing for me. Doom Patrol number 46. This is written by Grant Morrison. Again, I still prefer the early days when it was written by Paul Kupperberg and it was more straight up superhero stuff, but this had some interesting stories, and this is what the recent Max series Doom Patrol was based on, so it was good for the most part. I kind of started to lose interest when other writers came on and started trying to copy Alan, but I was going to mention Double Dragon number 2. Again, based on a video game, everything had never mind. Moving on from there, Excalibur number 40. Also from Marvel, there was Fantastic Four number 355. It looks like this had the Wrecking Crew in it. Also this month was The Flash number 53. This was the Wally West Flash. This issue guest starred Superman. It looks like they're having one of their infamous races. Also this month, part of the Armageddon 2001, The Flash Annual number 4. I covered that, again, back over my Head Speaks podcast, back when I did the Armageddon 2001 crossover. Again, I enjoyed the story. This was where, Wave Rider affected a lot of characters. They hit the heroes and altered the Flash's future, which, again, I won't get into here. I talked about it plenty back at the time. The Fly, number 1. This was an Impact Comics book. I'd picked these up. They weren't bad. They were reinventions of old characters. Also this month, G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, number 115. I cover this monthly over my G.I. Joe, A Real American Headcast show. I love G.I. Joe. Though as we get closer here in the next couple months, maybe by the time the show ends, I won't be liking it as much, but we'll talk about that over in G.I. Joe here in the future. Ghost Rider, number 16. This had Spider-Man, Danny Blaze, and it looks like Hobgoblin in it. Again, I was buying Ghost Rider at the time. Again, I was buying most DC and Marvel comics. Green Arrow, number 50. Yeah, I love this book. Mike Grell was the writer and the cover artist on this one. Again, for more on Green Arrow, there is a podcast by the wonderful couple, Darren and Ruth Sutherland, called Warlord Worlds. Also this month, there was Green Arrow 51. And I actually said Green Lantern because also Green Lantern 15 was out, part of the Mosaic storyline with Jon Stewart. Also Green Lantern Emerald Dawn 2, number 5. That was kind of a retellings of Hal's origins and start as a Green Lantern. Guardians of the Galaxy number 15. This was the futuristic Green Lantern book. Guardians of the Galaxy book. This is what I've said this before. This is what I wanted the movie to be, but it's not what we got. So moving on from there, we also have, Hawk and Dove number 26. Again, I love some Hawk and Dove. I'm planning on talking about this at some point in the future, somewhere, somehow. Hawkworld number 14, Hawkworld Annual number 2 were both out. Again, Hawkworld Annual was part of the Armageddon 2001. I was buying the Hawkworld book. I enjoyed it. It was a Hawkman book, basically. Hellblazer number 44. Incredible Hulk number 384 was out this month. Looks like this was part of the time. This was written by Peter David. This was part of the Smart Hulk or the Professor Hulk story. Also this month was Infinity Gauntlet number 2. The recent Marvel saga was based on part of this, so very nice. Iron Man 271, also from Impact Comics. There was Jaguar. I picked that one up just because I have an addiction. Also this month, we had Justice League number 53, Justice League Europe number 29 both came out this month. This was part of the Breakdown storyline, it looks like. Yep, both of them are part of the Breakdown storyline. This is when they were starting to make some changes to the Justice League book. I still enjoyed it. This was a little more serious for the Bwahaha League. Again, more on Justice League. Check out the Irredeemable Shags JLI Bwahaha podcast. Justice Society of America number 5 came out this month. Again, I was buying that. Legion 91 number 30. Looks like this has Lobo versus FaZe, who we find out at some point was actually Phantom Girl from the Legion of Superheroes. What? Also this month, Legend of the Shield number 2. This was part of the Impact Comics. Legends of the Dark Knight 21, which was basically out of continuity Batman stories. Well, started off that way, then they brought a lot of stuff in. Legion of Superheroes number 21. Again, this was part of the 5 years later, the darker, more grittier Legion of Superheroes. And while I said before, I prefer the 4-color, the brighter, more hopeful superheroes. I enjoyed the stories, so I thought they were good. I didn't buy it, but just to mention, Lost in Space, number 1. Also this month was Mark Spector Moon Knight, number 29. Also this month, we had Marvel Comics Presents, number 82 and 83, part of the Weapon X storyline. I was buying these issues because, again, I liked Wolverine. I want to know more about his origins. Great book. Marvel Tales, featuring Spider-Man, number 252. Again, this was a reprint book. They reprinted old Spider-Man stories. This reprinted Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man 101, where was the 6-armed Spider-Man fighting Morbius. Again, I read a lot of these from my friend Peter Pastor had a bunch of these. He was a big Spider-Man fan and had a lot of these. Also this month, we had The Mighty Thor, number 435. Namor the Submariner, number 17. New Gods, number 28. Going back over to DC for a minute. Again, mentioned it because of my wife. New Kids on the Block, Backstage Pass, number 6. Didn't realize it went on that long. Also this month, New Titans, number 78. This was near the end of the Titans Hunt storyline. And as I've said before, while I didn't like what they did to Joey in there, I enjoyed that storyline. I thought it was very good. The New Warrior, and in fact, I'm about to cover the New Titans at some point again, somewhere, some way. I keep saying that. A lot of stuff I want to talk about. The New Warriors, number 14. This had Darkhawk and Namor in it. Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., number 26. We had Nintendo Comics System number 7. Again, everything had a official handbook of the Marvel Universe Master Edition number 9. The original Ghost Rider Rides Again number 2. I think these were reprints, if I'm not mistaken. I think I read those. I had those at one point. Now I've got is just the first issue. Planet of the Apes number 15. Again, I didn't buy this, but I mentioned it because, again, I just got done watching the last 2 Planet of the Apes movie, waiting for the new one to come out as I talk about this. Punisher number 51, Punisher Summer Special number 1, and Punisher Original number 33. I enjoyed the Punisher. Also, Punisher POV number 2. I was enjoying the Punisher, bought all things Punisher. Quasar number 25. This is part of the Cosmos and Collision storyline. I was enjoying Quasar. I don't think it's still going on, but some friends of mine, one of them being Gene Hendricks, the podcasting machine, or whatever, being Gene, the podcasting machine, had a podcast called the Quasar Cast. Definitely check that out. In honor of the Ghostbusters movie, which just came out recently, there was the Real Ghostbusters 164 through 168 came out this month. That was part of the Marvel UK series. I wasn't buying these, but I had to mention them because this is Ghostbusters. Then we also had, just off the RoboCop number 18. I wasn't buying it, but it's RoboCop. Sensational She-Hulk number 30. Again, looks like She-Hulk was going up against the Hobgoblin. Very nice. I was buying that series, enjoying it. Shade the Changing Man number 14. I was still buying this. It wasn't the same Shade from the Suicide Squad in the earlier miniseries, but I was enjoying this for the most part. Got a little weird. Silver Surfer number 52 and 53. Looks like Drax and Firelord is in this book. Again, this is a different Drax than we're getting in the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, but what it is. Sleepwalker number 3. Again, another book I enjoyed. Another new Marvel character, an original creation. Spectacular Spider-Man 179 by J.M. DeMatteis. Guest starring or fighting against Vermin. Also, Spectacular Spider-Man Annual number 11. This was part of the crossover stories. Has Iron Man on the cover. which tells me it probably, as I said, crossed over the Iron Man book. More than likely. Spider-Man number 13. This was the Todd McFarlane written and drawn joint. They gave Todd a book to try to appease him, and he eventually left and went over to form Image. I'm not going to get into it. There were Star Trek books. There was like 4 of them. Starman number 37. You may have heard of this one somewhere like this episode. I won't go to Starman. I do that every month on this show. Suicide Squad number 56, part of the Dragon's Horde storyline. I'm getting there over on my Suicide Squad. My Task Force X podcast. I enjoyed Suicide Squad. Superman number 58. This was being written by Dan Jurgens, who I love he was a writer and penciler. I love his writing. I love his artwork. Fantastic. Also, a Superman Man of Steel number 2. This one, there was a new Superman book every single week, which I loved. And especially the crossover and how they managed that was fantastic. Swamp Thing 110 and Swamp Thing Annual number 6. Since Swamp Thing's its own thing, it wasn't a part of the Armageddon 2001 crossover. I think I either read these or maybe I read Bop's versions of them. I forget, or Billy's versions of them. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 36, the Mirage version, and also Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Adventures number 23, the Archie version, the more kiddie version. Also this month there was some Terminator books, another Planet of the Apes book. But moving on from, I'm going to mention this, Toxic Avenger number 5. I think I bought the first issue, but Toxic Avenger is one of those that's I like, but I'm not a huge fan of. Transformers number 320. This was a Marvel UK book. Actually, it was 320 through 323 was out. I wasn't reading these. I wasn't seeing these in my local comic shop. These were the Marvel, the UK version of the book. Uncanny X-Men number 279. Looks like Colossus is fighting, looks like Professor X. Also this month, there was Web of Spider-Man number 79. Very nice. Again, I enjoyed the Spider-Man books at this time. What If number 28. What if Captain America had led an army of super soldiers in World War II? Love What If. Again, there's a Disney Plus series based on these books. Not recounting any of these stories, but it's basically What If. Very nice. Wolverine's 43, 44, plus The Reign of Terra, deluxe book, whatever it was called. Wonder Woman number 57. X Factor number 69, plus X Factor Annual number 6. And again, this was one of those crossovers, probably some of the X-Men books, I would imagine. Doesn't necessarily say here. Speaking of X-Men and all things X, X-Force number 1. This was the new Rob Liefeld book. Came out of X Factor. Multiple printings, multiple covers. I had some of those. X-Men Annual number 15. Part of that crossover I just mentioned with X Factor. X-Men Classics number 62. Again, these were reprints. This reprinted Uncanny X-Men number 158. And finally, Zorro number 9. Again, didn't have them, but I enjoyed Zorro on Disney when I was a kid, so I had to mention it. But anyways, those are the books I wanted to point out for, August of 1991. Did you guys have these? Did you guys enjoy them? Did I miss anything you guys liked? Write in and let me know. You can send me an email to starman@headspeaks.com. But that's going to do it for this portion of Comics Comic Rack and this episode. We're going to end this episode 43 of Starman, the Starman Adventure Hour right here. So, let me know what you guys think. Again, write to me at starman@headspeaks.com. Notice I've moved away from the headcastnetwork.com right now because, again, I've lost that domain due to Gmail issues and other issues. But you can write to me at starman@headspeaks.com and let me know what you think. This time's going to be a bit shorter than an hour. It's kind of why I changed the name to the Starman Adventure Show. But, again, I go back and forth on it. But anyways, until next month, Star Hunters, keep looking to the stars.
Thank you for listening to another great episode of the Starman Manhunter Adventure Hour. Please join us next month for another great, fantastic episode as we cover another issue of the Will Payton Starman series and the Mark Shaw Manhunter series. Keep in mind that these podcasts are not affiliated or endorsed by DC Comics. I'm just a fanboy who loves these comics and wants to spread these love with everyone else out there and just talk about them. Again, you can email us at smah@headspeaks.com, or you can go to our blog, which is at starman-manhunter.headspeaks.com. You can also go to the Facebook page at facebook.com/Starman Manhunter Adventure Hour. No spaces, all one word. But once again, thank you very much for joining us. Until next episode, this is Aaron Moss saying, see you in the funny pages.